Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel where we do painting tutorials. Like you have seen from the thumbnail, today we'll be doing a watercolor winter landscape, and I start by wetting my background first. I'm just going to work on the sky first, so I only wet the sky. I mix some cadmium yellow with some cadmium orange to get a nice warm yellow, and I apply that right in the center. Then I apply my cadmium orange around the yellow and some cadmium red around the orange. I'm just following the order of my colors here. And for the top of the sky, I mix a cool red. It is rose madder and some cobalt blue to get that very nice soft lavender shade. Since this is a winter landscape, I want that winter hazy sky, so that is why I also added some cobalt blue to this. Now while my sky has a moment to dry, I'm going to repeat the same exact steps for the bottom portion because I want my sky to be reflected on the snow from the winter landscape. So again, I first wet the entire foreground with some clean water. I apply the yellow, the orange, and the red, and then for the bottom corners I use my mix, my lavender mix, which is from rose madder and some cobalt blue. Once I finish the ground, again I mix that same lavender. This time I use a bit less water so it's not as diluted, and I apply it to my sky to get those very soft winter clouds. The background has still not dried, so they are going to very softly diffuse onto the first washes that we did. And then with a clean brush, I take some of my orange and the cadmium red, and I'm going to apply it on the bottom of the clouds that are closest to the horizon because it's a sunset or sunrise, depends on how you view it. And since the sun is low, we're going to get some very reddish tones right there. So I just apply a very small amount and then bring it out towards the clouds, just very softly blend it out. Well, you don't even really need to blend it because the background is wet, so it's just going to do that on its own. I'm just very slightly guiding it right there. Now once everything has fully dried, I mix some of my cobalt blue, cadmium orange, and cadmium red to get this nice dark gray color, and I'm going to paint some very loose tree shapes. I want them taller on the sides of the paper and smaller as I reach the horizon, so I'm just very randomly going to do some blobs, quite literally. And for the center, I'm actually going to clean my brush and I'm going to paint the tiny trees in the center in front of the sun with some orange. If drawing and painting shapes is not your thing, there is going to be a traceable available over at my Patreon page, Sunshine Arts, where we also have full-time tutorials and digital downloads. And like always, all of the supplies and the reference picture will be linked down in the description of this video. Now with a dry brush, I'm trying it on my napkin. I'm picking up the color just from the trees that are right in the center of my painting because they're far up in the distance. That is why they are tiny. So I want those to be barely visible. I mix a new batch of my rose madder and cobalt blue, and I paint the shadows on the snow with it. I do dry my brush on the napkin and lift off some highlights, which are going to be built up snow on some trees I'm going to have in the foreground. Right now I'm just helping myself because it's easier to lift off watercolor paint while it is still wet. Once it dries and you go in with the brush, your paper might start to peel depending on the quality of the paper. I'm using some basic Canson paper for this, so I just want to play it on the safer side right here. I add some more shadows to the left side, and the big trees on the left side actually slightly bled and feathered out onto my sky, so I quickly mix the same dark gray color and just fix up the tops, nothing special there. Again, once everything is fully dried, I mix this time some intense blue cadmium red to paint the big trees I have in the foreground. The reason I switched to an intense blue and left out the cobalt blue I used throughout this painting is because these are cotman Winsor and Newton colors. What's particular about them is they are hues, aka they're synthetic. It's not the real thing and you can only squeeze out so much color from them. So I can't really get my cobalt to be any darker than it already is, and I just switched to another shade that is going to give me that extra darkness that I need for the trees in the foreground. Now for this one I actually skipped a little bit right on the bottom left side of the trunk. That is going to be snow that hit the tree right there, and I'm going to do another slightly smaller V-shaped tree right next to it. Remember, always make the trunk thicker than the branches or make the branches skinnier than the trunk. I find it helpful to hold my brush almost perpendicular to the paper. That's how I get skinny lines. There are probably other techniques and different techniques. This is just what I find most comfortable. I want the branches to go all across the sky, like all the way to the right side. So you can pretty much go wild with this. Just branches and more branches coming out of those. And I want to outline like a small lake or river that's flowing right in the middle of the foreground, and add some twigs or a small shrub or a bush next to my trees. I mix some cadmium red hue. They are all synthetic colors. Whenever I say cadmium red or cadmium orange, they're always synthetic. I mix it with a smidge of blue because I want to add some more trees in the background, some more trees. They're less saturated. I could have done this in advance, but I can layer these colors. The colors and the paper are forgiving. I can glaze on top of things I have already painted without the things I've painted moving around and bleeding. I don't have to worry about that. So that is why I didn't really respect the order of watercolor, and I'm just going as I paint. I'm figuring out this painting as I go. If I want a tree here or another branch there, I don't really have a plan when I start painting. I just go with the flow. I mix a bit more of that violet, of that lavender. I'm going to add some more shadows right in the foreground, some more saturated, some darker shadows in the foreground because it is very far away from the sunset and from the sun. So yeah, right under the trees and a bit on the bottom right corner as well. I go with a dry brush to pick up any excess water, any excess paint I may have. And that is it. I'd like to give a very special thank you to my Patreon supporters for the month of February, and thank you all for watching. If you found any value in this video, if you found this video useful, please let me know by liking, commenting, and if you have not already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps. And we'll see each other in the next video. Bye bye!